In episode 7, Bronte does not tell Dominique or Phoenix about anything she saw on her phone. This whole Joe thing is really eating her up. While her friends are still hyper-focused on getting Joe Goldberg arrested and thrown in jail forever for what he did to Clayton, you've got Bronte with a whole nother side of things. She feels like she needs to reach out to Joe and apologize, but she doesn't know how to do it. And that's when she gets called out by her friends because they need her help. They want her to start recording videos about what happened because she is known as Queen Catfish at this point. She really should be the face of these videos, but Bronte is very, very hesitant to do any of that. And both girls can't figure out why, but Bronte won't tell them. She makes a bunch of excuses, all of which are clearly excuses, and she says, nah, I can't do it right now. And eventually, Dominique goes to her and says, all right, what's going on with you? Bronte, who is packing at this point, tells Dominique, I'm just not going to ruin an innocent guy's life. And that's when it clicks with Dom that Bronte is not on their side. She says, oh my God, what did you tell the police? You switched, didn't you? And Bronte owns up to it. But she says, no, Dom, here's the thing. What we had was a theory and nothing more. We had a theory and we were wrong about it. And that sparks a huge argument where Bronte makes it clear about her side of the situation the previous night, about what actually happened from her perspective, about how Clayton was so hyper-focused on fixing the name of his dad that he was willing to sacrifice Bronte and didn't care how he did it. He was physically getting abusive, and Joe jumped to her behalf. In that moment, Joe wasn't killing Clayton. Joe was protecting her. And Dominique is completely stunned. She reminds Bronte that maybe it's best she leave New York, go back to Ohio, and remember who she actually is, which is Luis, and not Bronte. Because clearly she's been radicalized. But Bronte says, no, I'm not leaving New York. This is my home. I just think you guys are wrong. And then she takes off. But she doesn't really have a plan. As for Joe, meanwhile, he is all over the newspapers and not for anything good. The headline reads, Joe Gold murderer, humanitarian or homicidal maniac. And since it's New York City, well, it's everywhere. So he has to kind of sequester into his apartment. He keeps trying to get in touch with Kate to talk to Henry, but that's going nowhere. Eventually, he does meet with his lawyer. And the lawyer's suggestion is to wait for the heat to die down, and then they appeal the situation with Henry. But he also has some bad news, that Clayton's family is prepared to lawyer up. And that's when he drops the bombshell that Clayton is the son of Dr. Nicky, which comes as a huge shock to Joe. He realizes that all of this was just a revenge plot. The lawyer's last suggestion is just to lay low. He's got a good reputation, and after a few months, he should be reunited with Henry. But Joe's big concern is the fact that to Henry, it's going to look like he was abandoned. And Joe can't let that happen. Joe wasn't the only person meeting with a lawyer about the situation. Kate was doing the exact same thing. She was meeting with a crisis manager, though. And the crisis manager wanted to get ahead of all of this and save Kate's image. She also wanted to throw Joe in jail, but that's when Kate has to tell her, no, I can't. We're entangled in some stuff, and we just got to find another way. I can't take Joe down. I can't go against him right now. The crisis manager does ask what the deal with Maddie is, and Kate assures her, I'll take care of Maddie. And that's when Teddy walks in, annoyed. He asks Kate, is it as bad as it looks? And she says, oh, it's worse. And if anybody asks you about Joe, you know nothing. Now, look, I need a favor. I got an apartment that Joe is unaware of. I need you and your husband to take Henry there. Keep him safe. He agrees, but you can tell that his patience is wearing thin. And Joe figured that Kate would probably stash Henry in some location that he was unaware of, but he had a plan for that. He goes to Henry's school where, once he gets on the grounds, the principal stops him and says, Mr. Goldberg, you know you can't be here. He says, no, I know, but I've been reading this book to Henry. Can you just give it to him just so he has a little bit of normalcy? And she says, yeah, sure. But the book had a tracking device in it. So after a little bit, he's well aware of where Kate is keeping Henry. And at night, he heads there. Now, Kate thought that maybe Joe would be able to figure out the location, so she did have a bodyguard, but that bodyguard sucked, and Joe was able to get him to walk away from the entrance, which allowed Joe to knock on the door. Teddy answered, and he barged his way in. And he told Teddy, look, man, I just want to see Henry. But Teddy wasn't about to let that happen. He, after all, hearing everything that Joe did, knows how dangerous of a person he is. So he arms himself and he grabs a knife. But that causes a bit of a struggle between the two as Joe is trying to get the knife away from Teddy. And they both stop when they hear Henry on the steps say, Dad? And Joe has to do damage control. He tells Henry, hey, bud, like, hey, me and Uncle Teddy, we were just messing around, man. We were just playing. But then he goes into talking to Henry, knowing full well that time might be limited. He asks him how everything's going, and Henry tells him it's been tough. People aren't talking to him at school. Joe gives him a quick pep talk about that, but reminds him how much he loves him. And then eventually, the security does come in. They grab Joe. They start taking him out, and Joe is screaming to Henry, I didn't abandon you. I love you. I'll see you soon. And Henry is left on the steps screaming for his dad, likely traumatized a little bit. When Joe gets home that night, he is in a horrible mood. He didn't want Henry to see him treated like that, but yet he did. And his night goes from bad to worse when he hops online and he sees that JoeGoldberg is trending. And that's because Dominique and Phoenix decided to go live on Instagram and tell the world exactly what happened and all the findings they have that link Joe to a series of killings. Quickly, this live spreads, it gets stitched, and you do have a lot of people in Joe's past claiming that he is a murderer. Like Dottie, she's one of them. Peach's friend comes out of the woodwork. Beck's brother, but there are people that come to his defense, like Sherry and Carrie, although they're just trying to sell books. Look, the fact is, it is a horrible night to be Joe Goldberg as he is trending and everybody thinks he is a stone-cold killer. It's also a bad night to be Kate. I mean, she gets that phone call from Teddy, and he is livid. And Kate basically loses her biggest ally in Teddy. He's fed up. He's had enough. He doesn't want to be a part of this anymore. And he basically tells Kate, you need to find a way to get this guy in jail. Up until this point, Kate had been telling Teddy, well, if I turn on Joe, then he's going to turn on me. And what does that do to my image? I mean, what do you think would happen to me? I'd get thrown in jail. But Teddy is beyond caring at this point. He feels like he was attacked by Joe. He thinks he's dangerous. He thinks he needs to be thrown behind bars. And he doesn't want to hear from Kate until it happens. Now, the next day when Joe does wake up, he talks to his lawyer, and it's not much better. Even though Joe claims that there's zero evidence to support any of it, his lawyer has to remind him that in the court of public opinion, it looks pretty bad, and there's not a lot Joe can do about it. And he's pissed. But then he realizes maybe there is something he can do about it because he knows a PR expert, and that is Maddie. Now, Maddie has been stressed out this entire time. The previous day, she had a one-on-one conversation with Kate where Kate assured her that she would find a way to get Maddie everything she wanted. I mean, Maddie living this double life as Reagan is just eating at her. And Kate's solution is essentially to put her in rehab. I mean, she claims it's a spa, and it's not like Maddie is addicted to anything, but it's a retreat. She'd be gone for about a month, and Kate tells her, when you get out, we'll figure everything out, and you'll get everything you want. And it seems like Maddie is on board with that idea because she can't keep living this double life. And once Kate got the okay, she did text her crisis manager, all right, Maddie's taken care of, consider that one done. So initially, when Maddie gets the phone call from Joe and a text message, she doesn't want to answer it. But it also came with a video of Maddie killing Reagan. And at that point, Joe's got her. I mean, Maddie can't let that out. So Maddie heads to the bookstore to meet with Joe and figure out what he wants. And he makes it clear, if you help me with your PR skills, I won't release this video of you killing your sister. And with no real option, Maddie is forced to help him out. She finds a quasi Larry King of TikTok influencers who usually is really tough on guys like Joe to interview him. This person owes a lot to Maddie and the family, so she knows what the questions will be. They can pre-rehearse them, and because of the fact that the interviewer is usually really tough on guys like Joe, the fact that Joe will already have pre-planned everything, he's going to come out looking really good in this one. So that's what they do. They set it up for an interview in the bookstore, and Joe is miserable. I mean, he can't believe that it's come to this, being interviewed by the Larry King of TikTok. But when the interview goes live, it's got a bunch of eyeballs on it, including Bronte. She stopped by the bookstore, she saw the interview going down, and she decided to watch it live, see what Joe was saying. And Joe was honest about the affair. He was asked if he was in love with Bronte, and he pussyfooted around that conversation. And at one point during the interview, he says that Louise Flannery was the biggest regret of his entire life. And that's when Bronte stops the live. She opens up her phone, and she texts Joe, "For what it's worth, I told the police you were protecting me." But Joe was in the middle of an interview. He's not looking at his phone. He continues to answer these questions as best he can, trying hard to turn the court of public opinion on his side. And one of the ways he's going to do that is by showing the world the cage in the basement. He doesn't want to do it. He actually hates doing it. He's mad at Bronte because he feels like she's forcing him to do this, but he does. He tells the world that this is what a lot of people envision when you read Carrie and Sherry's book, but in reality, it's a box to harbor really old books. But then he starts talking about what that box meant to him and how his relationship with Mr. Moody was complicated because while Mr. Moody loved him, he was also abusive and wanted to make a man out of him, and he would stick him in there for days on end. And while Joe is trying to keep a strong face, eventually he just breaks down at the thought of it, and they have to stop the interview. And Maddie steps in. She gives him a bit of a pep talk and basically tells him to get his crap together. And that's when Joe does look at his phone. He sees the text from Bronte, and it changes everything. I mean, not only does it change his mood, he knows how he's going to approach the interview going forward. So when the interviewer asks about what happened that night, Joe goes, "You asked me if I was in love with her, and yeah, I was. And what I was doing was protecting her." He then goes into talking about protecting Bronte in that moment, how he did it, how he didn't want what happened to happen, but it did. And suddenly, everybody does get on Joe's side. I mean, it literally does a 180 with people thinking that Joe is this white knight. For Joe, it's great. For people like Kate, she's disgusted by it. I mean, because she was watching the whole thing too. She can't believe that people are getting on his side. It doesn't make it any easier when Henry comes up and asks, "Hey, what was Daddy doing?" And she has to tell him that Daddy had done something bad. He'd hurt some people. He then notices that she has her passport in her hand and her bags are packed, and he asks, "Where are we going?" And she tells him to London, because that's what they're planning on going the next day. But not too far away, Joe is in his apartment at Moody's, and he's watching the reaction come in live with people suddenly getting on his side. But he's also watching something he was not expecting, and that's people go against Bronte. And at first, it just seems harmless, but then he sees a video where somebody caught Bronte on the street. She had booked a bus ticket back home to Ohio. She decided that she was going to follow Dominique's advice, and she was walking to the bus stop. And now you've got Joe concerned that these psychopaths will be after her. And sure enough, one was. When Bronte stopped to help this guy when he dropped something in his van, the guy attacked her. But luckily, Joe wasn't too far away. He dragged the guy out of the car, and he bashed his head in. And because it's New York City, that sort of thing is just normal, so everybody just kept walking by, and nobody noticed. And the next day, when Joe wakes up, the front page on the paper tells a very different story. All of a sudden, Joe's looking pretty good. But when he gets home to his apartment, he's not the only one there. Because after he seemingly killed that guy, he decided to bring Bronte home. And she's chained to his bed. But that is the same day that Kate and Henry went back to London. And they didn't just go back to London to get away from Joe. Kate wanted to right a wrong. She goes to the prison and she meets with Nadia. And she tells her that she wants to get Nadia out of there, and she feels like she's in a position to do so because she helped put Nadia in there. And then she looks at her and tells her, "We're going to take Joe Goldberg down." Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.